The next problem that I want to solve is this area here. I've reused this old box which I made to store long scraps in. It used to be over here by the window. At the moment it kind of encroaches on the already narrow walkway, so I want to make something a little bit smaller that will fit the space better, and I'm going to use some of this salvaged and very dirty OSB that I got from a local building site. They were actually throwing all of this away.
I used the circular saw to cut the OSB into more manageable pieces and then cut the panels to size on the table saw.
I've got my 4 panels cut and I'm just going to glue and screw these together into a box. Very simple construction, won't be the strongest box in the world but doesn't need to be. I'm going to use the cleanest sides of the plywood facing inwards, and that way the glue should adhere better and I can give the whole outside of the box a sanding once it's assembled.
I sanded the edges before applying glue just to get rid of some of the dirt.
That's the box assembled. Now I just need to measure up for a bottom panel. I've got a spare set of casters, so I'm going to pop these on the bottom of the box, so if I ever need to move it, it'll make it a lot easier. I've cut a couple of scraps of chipboard and this will give me an extra bit of material to attach the casters to.
I used brad nails to hold the pieces until the glue dried. Then I sanded the box with the belt sander to remove the dirt and clean up the edges. I gave the box a couple of coats of white satin paint.
I've got a couple of pieces of poplar that are left over from the trim that I made for the motor station, so I'll use these to trim the edges of the top of the box just to make it a bit more durable.
And that was another problem solved. The next job to tackle was changing my old tool wall. It had served me well for 2 years, and it was made up of MDF slot board salvaged from a skip from a local shop refurbishment. It was looking really messy, and also this wall wasn't fully insulated, as at the time I built the wall I just used whatever insulating materials I could salvage at that time. So I decided to take it all off and make a new wall using salvaged OSB to match the new tool wall that I had installed already. I measured the angle of the roof with a bevel gauge and marked this up onto the top edge of the OSB. Then I extended that line with a straight edge and cut it out with a circular saw. Then I could screw it into the uprights. I gave it a couple of coats of white satin paint. For the bottom of the wall, I just used drywall again to match the rest of the workshop walls. I used plasterboard tape between the sheets and added filler. Then I made skirting boards from some spare pallet wood that I had. I just rounded over the top edge with a block plane, sanded them with the belt sander, and gave them a couple of coats of white satin paint. I screwed these to the uprights of the workshop wall and used caulk to seal any gaps. To hide the gaps at the top of the tool wall, I decided to make some coving. I just used some scraps of reclaimed pine. I think these might be scaffold boards with a stain applied. I ripped them at an angle on the table saw, cut them to length at the miter saw, and then pinned them in place with brad nails. Then I sealed the gaps with decorator's caulk, filled the nail holes and painted them.
I've just finished this, the second of 2 tool walls in my workshop. This one over here being the first of the 2. And I stopped filming footage for quite a while because I just wanted to crack on and get it finished really. And also the workshop was in such a mess that there wasn't really much space to set up a camera and a tripod. I feel like I'm being watched. So I finished adding the OSB to the top of the wall and the plasterboard to the bottom of the wall and also the skirting boards. I've got this power cable running in the corner which I will probably box in at some point, but that will be a job for another day. For the second tool wall, pretty much everything is held in place just with screws as per the first tool wall, but I did make 1 or 2 tool holders such as this one which holds my plug cutting set and this one over here. I got this lovely set of Makita Forstner bits for Christmas and I mounted this on an angled block of wood which I cut on the table saw, and that's just to ensure that they don't fall out when I open the box. My old Forstner bits and spade bits are over here mounted in some PVC pipe. Literally just cut this at a slight angle and then screwed them into the OSB and they're not going anywhere. And I reused this old MDF box that I made quite some time ago to hold all of my drill bits. Not the best looking thing, and I'll probably recreate something that looks nicer in the future. When I bought this 90-degree aluminium angle to make the miter saw fence, it came with 2 other lengths, and I've used that to frame the window and hide the OSB edges. I've also used it over here on tool wall number 1 and over here by the door to hide the plasterboard edge. Over here by the window I've added another piece of OSB screwed into the uprights, and this holds all of my bar clamps. I still need to add plasterboard to this top piece, and that's going to be an awkward job because of all of this cable trunking. I added another piece of OSB over here which I drilled into and glued in some dowels, and these hold all of my sanding belts. I also added a couple of pieces of wood to the side of the miter station, and these will hold my squeeze clamps and a couple of other bar clamps that I've got down here, and some smaller squeeze clamps at the bottom, and plenty of space for more clamps too. And there's still space over here in the corner for the sliding miter station support cabinet, which also holds all of my F clamps and spring clamps. I've still got this bench over here in the corner by the door that I made in a previous video, which is a kind of docking station for my thickness planer and jointer, and that works well, so there was no reason to make any changes to that. And in between that and the bandsaw, I've reused this slim shelving cabinet that I knocked together out of some plywood. That's just used for a bit of extra storage space and work surface. So I think that covers everything. And that was a hell of a lot of work just to get the table saw and the workbench into the centre of the workshop. I think I've been working on this change for 5 or 6 weeks now, and I'm looking forward to getting on with some projects that aren't workshop related so that I can put this new layout to use, but I do think that it will prove to be worthwhile.